crystal lovers, Ashley here with the Love and Light School, and in this video I'm talking about the 5 best fossils for crystal healers. So I think when it comes to our crystal healing work, a lot of us are really attracted to bright, colorful things or sparkly, glittery things, and fossils sort of tend to get overlooked for whatever reason. Maybe it's because they aren't as traditionally aesthetically beautiful compared to crystals in most people's eyes, or maybe it's because people feel a little bit intimidated and they don't quite understand how to work with them as part of their crystal healing practice. No matter what the reason, I'm here to sort of break down, hopefully, some of those obstacles and barriers to working with your fossils, because fossils are found in just about every part of the earth. And I think that they're a really overlooked and underutilized companion, tool, energetic ally for connection as part of your crystal practice. So, all fossils, no matter the type of plant or animal, no matter the mineral type that they're created from, they all share sort of a similar group of qualities. And I want to talk about these a little bit, and then I'm going to go through my top 5 favorite fossils, show you some examples so you can sort of see how to start working with them. So in terms of what a fossil is, first, let's start there. A fossil occurs when there is a plant, an animal, or there are these other types of fossils that are more like impressions of things like footprints, stuff like that, that have been left in the earth, usually in some sort of mud or soft clay, some sort of substrate. And what happens over the process of hundreds of thousands or millions of years is that organic material at some point dissolves, it disappears, and the imprint of that thing is left almost like a mold. And so some other mineral solution comes in. Some of the most common are things like agate or opal, but these enter that mold that's sort of been created, and an imprint of that fossil is left in stone. So it's a really cool process that occurs when fossilization happens. And so no matter what type of fossil, what type of mineral, all fossils have some healing properties or some qualities in common because they've all undergone this process. So fossils are great for helping enhance your connection with nature, with sort of the flora and fauna around you, because fossils are like these natural records of the Earth's history. They really do tap into the Earth at its most primal, its most ancient. And so being able to sort of reconnect with that energy through fossils is one way that we can work with them. They're also excellent for promoting any type of spiritual journey work, whether that's like a guided meditation, astral travel, anything like that. Fossils are great for facilitating that. They can also sort of stir up past life memories, because remember, they are records of everything that has happened here on this earth. So if you do any type of past life work or exploration, they can be useful companions during that work. And similar, they can also enhance communication with your guides. So if those guides are familial, spiritual, if we're talking about land spirits, ancestors, all of those different energies that you may want to connect to for guidance, for wisdom, fossils can help facilitate the communication with those guides. Fossils are also excellent for promoting protection. Most fossils can be utilized for grounding and connecting you with the earth element, so they're naturally really good for sort of stability and shielding, energetic protection, that sort of thing. So all fossils pretty much have those properties in common, but there are 5 fossils that I want to highlight here in this video that I think are extra special, that are really some of my favorites. And I've brought along some examples to show you so you can see just how varied and magical these fossils can be. And so many of them, again, are found all over the world. So, number one on my list are Ammonite fossils because out of all the different fossils that I've worked with, I think Ammonites are probably my favorite. And they are a type of ancient cephalopod. They're now extinct, um, but their formation is in a spiral, which I think just evokes this mystical quality that humans have been attracted to for tens of thousands of years. I mean, think about even like the spirals carved on the Newgrange stones. We see this form, this shape of the spiral sort of representing our connection to source, our connection to the universe, our connection to each other. And so Ammonite, being that they have this spiral as well, have been long revered by humans, but also they sort of help us tap into that very like mystical energy. I personally think some of the best Ammonite fossils are found in Madagascar, England, and Peru. I think they're just really beautiful. And there are lots of legends and folklore associated with Ammonite fossils. For example, in England, people referred to them as snake stones. And this goes back to a story about St. Hilda of Whitby, who lived between 614 and 680. And St. Hilda was said to have prayed for the dangerous snakes in Whitby to be turned to stone, these coiled up stones, in order to clear the land for a convent. There are other versions of this story that say that St. Hilda turned the snakes into stone herself to protect the nuns at Whitby Abbey. So people believed that these snake stones were really holy, or at least really sort of lucky, like a lucky charm or talisman, and they wore them as good luck charms, often with a snake's head carved on one end. And one of the genus of Ammonite is still known as Hildoceras, named for St. Hilda in the saint's honor. And I actually forgot to grab my favorite ammonites, which are snake stones, and they are modern recreations of some of these old pieces. I'm going to grab these so I can show them to you. But they are carved from Whitby Ammonite, so where St. Hilda was from. So I'll show you what I mean. They have these really cute little faces. So here's the Ammonite that you're probably all used to, but look at the little head that has been carved on there. How cute is that? So I have them facing two different directions here. Let me switch them around so they're facing each other. And these are both Whitby snake stones. So they're ammonite fossils, and you can see why ancient people thought that these were petrified snakes. Snakes turned to stone, right? Because of the way they're coiled up there. So these are from the amazing folks at Fossils UK. This is not like affiliate promotion, anything like that. I just love these. So that is where you can get them if you're interested in that. But I have some other ammonites I want to show you as well that are just really fun. So, oh my gosh, where to even begin? So this one is sort of something that someone imagined up. It is an ammonite fossil like this, which is from Madagascar, but in all these little chambers here in the ammonite's body, someone has inlaid ammonite, which is a different type of fossil, and it makes this iridescent sort of shell, and they've put this ammonite into all the little chambers in the ammonite fossil. So this is what they regularly look like, but someone made this one sort of extra magical. So I want to sort of show you those. Now I also have one of these ammonite, like the one I just showed, which this is actually just a half. So this is what the exterior of the fossil looks like. And when they split it down the center and cut it open, you can see all those little chambers. Now here is a whole one that has not been cut open, but what they did do is they carved a little face on the end, so it looks sort of like a skull, which is pretty cool. And then sometimes if you have really large ammonite fossils like this, inside these chambers, you will get these sort of oak leaf-like patterns. And this is just a cabochon cut out of a very large ammonite fossil that, you know, displays these beautiful oak leaf-like patterns. And sometimes you'll also find these little sort of Drew's caverns in them that are really beautiful. And sometimes the outside of the shell, like this one, or of the fossil, I should say, is really iridescent, like this piece. So if you were to cut this down the middle and slice it open and polish it, it would look like this inside, where it would have all those little chambers. But this one is particularly beautiful because of its exterior with that gorgeous iridescence. And this is not uncommon of the pieces from Madagascar. Now I do have some other ones. These are a different species. These are also really iridescent, but they have almost this lacquer-like finish that looks much more like abalone. It almost looks sort of like a little bit more like mother of pearl, something like that. And so they're really iridescent as well. And you can see actually where sometimes this chips off. So it's just this thin coating, but that is all natural. That's all part of that fossilization process. Now, sometimes the fossils get replaced with other types of minerals. So, for example, this ammonite was replaced with pyrite. So there's a little bit of sort of like a pyrite concretion here, but even this whole fossil here is made of iron pyrite, and that's a natural fossil. And then sometimes you have some where you can just see some really interesting patterning. Here's another piece from Morocco. Look at that pattern. And that's very similar to this sort of oak leaf pattern that I showed you before, but a different species here from a different locality replaced with different minerals. And then I even have a box of teeny tiny little ammonite fossils. Because these are pretty common, especially in the UK. So these are all English ammonites, very, very small pieces, but a lot of fun. Now, there's also ammonites that come from the Somerset region, which look a little bit more like this. There's some from Yorkshire, which look more like this. And I just love these. I have a lot of different ammonite fossils because I think that the mythology and the lore, the stories behind these ammonites and what ancient people thought of them, and not even always ancient people, sometimes just a few hundred years ago, and sometimes even less than that. There's this folklore, there's this mythology that is carried through about a lot of fossils. And we are going to actually be talking about this, myself and 4 other amazing presenters, at an upcoming symposium called Frozen in Stone, Fossils, Folklore, and Magic. And I will be presenting 2 classes all about fossils coming up this Saturday, June 1st. This will be a live day-long event, but if you can't make it live, don't worry. All of the classes will be recorded. I'm going to drop a link to that in the comments here so you can check it out. Be sure to sign up soon because we'll only be doing this event one time. It'll be myself, my dear friend Nicholas Pearson, Anwin Avalon, Brett Hollyhead, and Moss Matthey. Each of us 5 presenters will be teaching 2 classes, so there's 10 classes total in this event, which is going to be really pretty cool. So back to our ammonites. Part of what made me fall in love with ammonites was traveling to England, and I have some other Somerset ammonites here, and these are almost this sort of sandy golden color and sort of a light tan. I particularly love these. These feel so soft, so nurturing, so welcoming. And these are some of my favorite ammonites, even though they're maybe not the most spectacular aesthetically. Like there are a lot of other ones that are definitely maybe a little bit more visually interesting, but I love the detail that you can find in these. And I love how you can look down at cobblestones, at the sides of buildings, and spot little ammonites in them because those sea creatures used to inhabit a lot of that land. So let's talk about some properties of ammonite fossils as I continue to show you some of these. Here's an iron-based ammonite fossil from Somerset. So it's actually the same as this one, but it has a lot more iron in it, so it's a little bit different color. And then here's a different species. This one is a goniatite ammonite. They're different species. This is from Madagascar, and you usually see these in these black, white, and gray colors. So ammonite in general are great for promoting acceptance, which is one thing I really love about them. They facilitate that spiritual journey work and inner work similar to what most fossils do. They also enhance your connection with goddess energy, with the divine, and I have this beautiful pyritized ammonite here, which is shining and golden and radiant, and so you kind of feel that divine energy come through from them. They can enhance with past life recall, enhancing your present moment awareness, so helping you be present and centered. They're also known for facilitating animal communication. And here I have a really interesting, this is actually an iron-based ammonite fossil as well, but it also has a little slight iridescence to it. So that one's really pretty special. And then these are pure pyrite. These I believe are, I want to say they're Russian. And you can see this one has been sliced in half, right down the middle, and revealed those chambers. This one, the sort of one side has been hand polished off, so you're looking into the chambers, and these are both completely replaced with pyrite. So they have that beautiful sort of golden glittering appearance. Now this piece is just one of the chambers from a large ammonite, and it has some chalcopyrite. So it's sort of an iridescent, multicolored iron-based stone. Look at that. That's just the coolest to me. And so this is where all of these little segments would have been in a spiral. That's why it has this sort of notch as it formed, you know, around like this, forming that spiral. But inside, that's what they look like, which is pretty cool. These are also great for connecting with your ancestors, receiving guidance from them, promoting grounding, especially these iron pyrite pieces. They're heavy. That iron itself is really grounding. So when you're working with fossils, try to consider the type of plant or animal, or what type of fossil it is, what that symbolizes, along with the properties of the specific mineral that has replaced that organism, and think about the properties or energies that that mineral has. So these are also, like I said, great for grounding, great for connecting you with nature. I love these teeny tiny little pyrite ones. And then here's one. This is from Madagascar as well. This one has a lot of really deep ridges on it. It's almost a bit more chalky feeling. And it's pretty heavy. It's very solid for what it is. So there are so many different ways that these ammonites can sort of take shape with these different minerals that are replacing them. And one of the things I love about them is that spiral shape, because it really helps you sort of journey and spiral in, and it's great for enhancing your meditation practice. Now, if you do want to learn a little bit more about ammonite fossils, I do have a blog post about ammonites that I will share in the comment section here. So feel free to head over and check that out. But I will be releasing this week, Thursday, May 30th, a brand new blog about these top 5 favorite fossils of mine. So we'll be talking a little bit more about them soon over on the website. And I will also have a new podcast episode dropping about that. So there's a link to subscribe to my podcast on your favorite podcast platform here. Be sure to click that and subscribe so you don't miss that episode when it comes out. Okay, next up, I want to share Belemnite fossils with you. Belemnite fossils. Now, these are ones that you may not have heard of. I think that they are so underappreciated, and I adore these. So I only have 3 of them, but I will show you. They're all a little bit different here. Belemnites were also known as thunderstones, and they are records of like this sort of squid-like cephalopod, and the long sort of beaky part of that squid-like creature contained this sort of cone. And these lived between the Triassic period through the Cretaceous period. And so that cone, that beaky part of this creature, is what we most commonly find fossilized. It's the part that sort of, was, I guess, substantial enough to leave that imprint or that mold that could then be replaced by the different minerals. So we often find belemnites in these kind of bullet-shaped or horn-shaped fossils, which is pretty cool. So I'll show you. I only have 3 of these again. This one here is from England, and you can see it's very like bullet-shaped or horn-shaped, but they're just neat. I mean, can you imagine finding this and just being really perplexed by it? Like, how did the earth make something like that? And it's because it is this fossilized creature. Now here's another one. This one's a little bit different color. This one is also English, but it has a little different finish. It's a little more shiny instead of so matte. And then finally I have this one, which is ever so slightly translucent. Can you see that, how it sort of picks up the light? And it's sort of a root beer color. And this one is from either Madagascar or Morocco. I think it's from Morocco. I want to say it is, but maybe it's Madagascar. I can't remember off the top of my head. But that one is a little bit more common, I would say, a little bit easier to find that sort of translucent style. So thinking about Belemnite, this, really interesting shape, this sort of very direct, almost arrow-like shape. These aid in decision making, offering mental clarity, enhancing focus, because think about it, they're like directional. They are about movement. They are about that, giving you that direction and that clarity and focus so that you can really get to the heart of the matter, so you can take action. That's kind of what their energy is. It's this very quick, decisive, just making a decision, sticking to it, moving forward. And they also help facilitate a connection with your inner voice. So if you've been feeling like you're lacking clarity or direction, Belemnite fossils are really useful to work with. They also facilitate the process of kind of tuning into your own intuition and calling upon that intuitive guidance, just so you feel a little bit more confident in your decisions. So I really like them for that. One of the most, I think, underappreciated, underutilized, even of the fossils, which are already sort of underutilized in the crystal healing world. Now, the third fossil on my list are Echinoid fossils, and these are fossilized sea urchins. They are really cool. They have so many different colloquial names depending on their specific shape, which has to do with the particular species of sea urchin that made them. So according to Kenneth McNamara, who wrote an amazing book that I was turned on to by Nicholas Pearson. It's called The Star-Crossed Stone: The Secret Life, Myths, and History of a Fascinating Fossil. I love this book. It's amazing. And again, big shout out to Nicholas Pearson for recommending it to me and for introducing me to Kenneth McNamara in general, who does some amazing scholarly work on fossils. Um, Kenneth shares so many of these colloquial names, but I've pulled out a few of my favorites. And I'm going to show you one of these fossil echinoids, these sea urchin fossils, so you can see them and sort of get an idea on why they might have these names. So here is one of the shapes that you may have seen before. I think this one is a little bit more common and really interesting aesthetically to look at. So here it is. This is a little sea urchin fossil. It just kind of sits like this. And this is what it looks like on top, and this is what it looks like underneath, just like that. So here are some of the names for these. Now this one is from Morocco, but there are some that come from England. They're all over the place, and most of mine are either from Morocco or England, but I have one from Florida, one from Peru, a few others. But here are the names that they go by: thunderstones, shepherd's crowns, sheep's hearts, bishop's knees, fairy heads, fairy loaves, Chedworth buns, snake's eggs. My favorite word for them is the fairy loaf. That's my favorite name because if I pull out one of my sweet little ones here, they really do look like a tiny little loaf of bread. Just a little baked loaf. That's exactly what they look like. And I actually have my very favorite one right up here as an offering on this little statue, and it really does just look like a little loaf of bread, a tiny loaf of sourdough or something like that. So those are some of the popular names for them, and you can see where they sort of get these names. Here's another one. This one really reminds me of the, like, it makes the bishop's knee make sense. It sort of looks like a kneecap, right? Like a knee bone. There are sheep's hearts is one of the names, and this is my favorite species of these fossil echinoids. This is the Micraster species, and it actually forms a heart shape. So these were called sheep's hearts. So there's a deep connection with the countryside in a lot of these names. The sheep's hearts, the shepherd's crowns, all those things. And then we also see this connection with the fae, with the she, fairy heads, fairy loaves, fairy nightcaps, all that sort of things. And then lots of connections with bread and the hearth through, fairy loaves, Chedworth buns, all that sort of thing. And there is so much history and magic and lore about these that is connected to hearth magic, to bread, to dairy and butter. And I'm going to be talking about this at the Frozen in Stone Fossil Symposium because I am teaching a class all about fossils for hearth magic and kitchen witchery. So if you want to learn more about that, again, I'll paste the link here. You can check it out. It's happening live June 1st, but recordings will be made available to anyone who registers. So these echinoid fossils, I'm going to show you a few more while I'm talking about them. This one looks a little bit more like a sea urchin. You might see them called also like fossil sand dollars, right? It's a little sand dollar. You're probably familiar with something that looks very similar to that that's still living now. But these are all about promoting nurturing and care. They facilitate connections with your spirituality. They really enhance feelings of like peace and calming and tranquility. Here's a really little tiny one. How sweet is that? I think these are just so cute. They are also about facilitating a connection to the energy of the water element, which is something that is all about intuition and getting in flow and the emotions. Look at this one. This is one of my favorites because it has a very perfect little star. Almost looks like a flower. And you always typically see these 5 segments in these sea urchin fossils. Here's one of the micraster again, but this is a small one, so a little heart-shaped one. And let's see, this one was a gift from Nicholas Pearson. This one is very conical. It's a sort of a cone-shaped one. I believe this one was from Florida. They're also sort of promote this feeling of lightness, of airiness, especially if you're surrounded by a lot of heavy energy. They can be really useful as sort of a pick-me-up, a good companion to help you like carry forward during difficult times. And then here's my last one right here. So these are just fun. I love them. They're one of my favorites. And that's why I had to include them in this list of my top 5 fossils for crystal healers. Next up is one that we still have these organisms today, and this is fossil coral. So we can see dried coral wash up on beaches, that sort of thing, but there's also coral that's millions of years old that has been fossilized, meaning all of that calcium carbonate, that CaCO3, that coral is made of, has been replaced by some other mineral, like agate, for example. So agatized coral, I think, is probably the most common, but there are so many types of fossil coral. And I'm going to show you some different ones here because fossil coral is probably the most diverse type of fossil that you'll see. It comes in such a huge variety of shapes and sizes and colors, and it also represents this huge group of different organisms, right? There were so many different species of coral, and so I think these are just visually fascinating to see this diversity. My personal favorite is probably the Petoskey stone, which is the name for a specific variety of fossilized coral that comes from Michigan in the United States. So let's take a look at some of these fossil corals so you can see them. And some of these I know more about than others, but I think they're all pretty cool. So here's the first one. You can see all these little coral organisms growing together in sort of a colony. That's one here. This is one of my favorites. Look at the hexagonal structure. And I believe that this species is known as a hexagonite coral. It almost looks like honeycomb, and it's so lightweight. It weighs almost nothing. Sometimes you'll see pieces that look more like this. It's like a little coral branch. It looks kind of similar to a little limb cast from petrified wood, but it's all coral. And then you'll often see tumbled or polished pieces that look more like this. And this is agatized coral. And you can see the coral organisms there. They form almost these little like flowers when you're looking at the surface of them, sort of at the ends of them, because they're sort of these tube-like organisms. So if you look down those tubes, you see that little sort of flower, but if you look at the side of them, you can kind of see they're almost like long and skinny because you're seeing the side. There's some, look at this one. This one, all these little organisms are really far apart. Like, look at the difference in this and then that first one that I showed you. Look how different those are. And that's just because they're different species. Now, this one, on the other hand, looks more like what we might think of when we think of some of the living coral today that's at the bottom of the ocean now, with lots of little branches. That's pretty interesting. Then we have a few more here, and coral is great because it really promotes this sort of vitality and life force energy. It facilitates a lot of community connection. Think about the fact that these are communal organisms, so they can really teach us a lot about being in right relationship, being in community with other people. That can be with our friends and family, with our actual community members, with our global community, but they teach us about cooperation, working together, putting aside individualism. Now here's one that I really love. I think this was a gift from Nicholas Pearson also. Look at these, look almost like little stars on here. So cute how they grow together like this. And then here is one of my Petoskey stones, and this is a big jumbo one. So this is the special coral that comes from Michigan, from the UP. You can find it sort of along the shores. So this is kind of what it looks like. But then when you polish it, you can reveal those sort of chambers of the coral organism. And here's another piece of Petoskey stone. This one's a little smaller, but you can see those same sort of flower-like growths because you're looking down the end of those coral tubes. Now here's one that is a horn coral, and it looks almost like a little button, but they call this a horn coral. And then there's red horn coral as well, which is agatized, and this agate that has replaced the coral has this red color, and so it creates this really vibrant piece of fossilized coral. Here is another piece of red horn coral, and you can really see the patterns in that one. And then we have a few other pieces that are a little bit more branch-like. We have some here. This is actually from Wiltshire, I believe, in the UK, near Stonehenge in Avebury. And then this is a piece of Tisbury starstone, which is a fancy name for a special agatized coral from Wiltshire. It's also called Wiltshire fossil coral, Wiltshire starstone. And I think, oh, no, I have another one. Here is a really weird one. Look at this one. This is a horn coral as well. That one looks so cool to me. It's just, it almost looks like an interesting mushroom or something like that. So not only do these corals promote this sense of community and connection, they also enhance creativity and love. They enhance a connection with nature. They promote feelings of peace and relaxation and safety. And I think one of the things that I like about these best is that they help you sort of gather together lots of wisdom from your life experiences and sort of draw on those life lessons for deeper understanding of the world around you. They can also instill courage and bravery, especially when you're facing things that are new or unfamiliar or particularly challenging, and they facilitate that ancestral connection, as many fossils do. Now, the fifth one on my list I chose because it's so common, it's so easy to get, and it's very affordable. So it's accessible for most folks, and that is petrified wood. So petrified wood, usually pretty easy to come across. And I have a few different pieces of petrified wood to share with you here. Oh, I just found one more echinoid, one more sea urchin fossil. It was hiding in a different box. Look at that one. That is so gorgeous. I'm in love with that. And then here's some more fossil coral. Look at this big palm stone of fossil coral. You can really appreciate that beautiful flower-like pattern from those coral organisms. So petrified wood. Petrified wood is created when minerals come in and replace the molecules that were in the plant material, usually some sort of tree trunk or tree limb, which captures its structure in stone. And typically the organic material is replaced with agate. Sometimes it can be replaced with opal. So sometimes you'll see petrified wood. It's usually just called petrified wood if people are uncertain of the exact mineralogical composition. But sometimes you'll see it called agatized wood, which means it was replaced with agate, or opalized wood, meaning it was replaced with opal. So this is incredibly grounding. It helps you work with deep emotions. And it also supports you as you create more stability in your life. with things like your career, your home life, your finances, your spiritual practice, your connection with nature, just anything that you need to be really anchored in and rooted in. Petrified wood is great for that. It also facilitates persistence and assists you in overcoming obstacles that can be blocking your path. So if you have a big challenge ahead of you, you need some support, you need that sort of motivation to be persistent, petrified wood is a great companion. And it just helps you accomplish this by reminding you to take things slow and break things down one step at a time. So here I have some petrified wood from Madagascar. This is where you can find a lot of tumbled stones, palm stones, very commonly on the market. This is also from Madagascar. This is a little slice, and you can actually see the tree rings in this little wood slice, which is kind of interesting. This is also a slice, and you can see it is polished on one side, but around the outside it really looks just like the tree bark, just as it was, and it's just been replaced with that chalcedony. Sometimes it's really colorful. You get these beautiful colors. This was really common to the petrified wood from Arizona and the petrified forest, which you can no longer collect. It's now protected, but you will find these bright colors from other localities as well. But the petrified forest was known for these like beautiful reds. Sometimes you'll even have them carved into shapes. I have this one that's a little pyramid, and look, you can almost see like exactly how the wood grain was. And it's now all mineralized. So there's no wood left, but it still looks like wood, which is very cool. And then here is an example of a limb cast. So this is literally just like a little branch from something that was mineralized later. And so it just looks like exactly like a little tree branch. Now here's one that has been completely agatized. And so let's see if I can use my flashlight to show you. This will actually sort of light up. See how translucent that is? Because it's replaced with agate. And so you can see sort of right through it, which is really cool. And this piece here is a piece of opalized petrified wood. Now, some opalized wood can be made of precious opal, where it will have that fire in it. I don't have any of those. This is replaced with common opal or potch opal, so it's really lightweight. It is opalized still, but there's no flash or fire. It's just a little different than an agatized wood. Then you'll have petrified wood that sometimes goes under different names depending on the species. So this is petrified palm wood, and it kind of has these little dots because palms are like super vascular, and so you can see that here. Here's a rough piece of the same material. So that is the petrified palm wood. And then there's also petrified peanut wood, which it doesn't come from a peanut plant. I think it just looks like it has a peanut-like pattern. So this is sometimes called peanut wood. It's just a type of petrified wood. And then you'll also have petrified palm root, which you will see often from Indonesia. And I have this piece here, which is carved into a little owl. So you can find this petrified wood in so many different formations. In addition to what we already talked about, that grounding and stability and that sort of thing, it's great for promoting motivation, enhancing energetic shielding and protection, which is great for petrified wood. It facilitates connection with the earth element. It promotes creative problem-solving skills. So this is one of the reasons if you're sort of getting stuck on something, you can connect with some petrified wood to help you think up some creative solutions to your problem. It also encourages you to take responsibility if you're having a hard time doing that with something in your life, because that can be difficult, right? And sometimes we need a little support when we're doing those hard things. And it also helps you develop a connection with nature spirits, particularly with tree spirits. So if you want to develop relationship with the trees in your local area, like I do, I love the different trees. I love getting to know them, the hawthorns, the willows, the mountain ash, the apples, everything. Bring some petrified wood with you. You might even want to leave a little piece as an offering now and again. And it's also a great crystal for instilling patience. It took so long for these fossils to form. So, helping you remember that sometimes things don't happen instantly. We need to have a little bit of patience. And finally, they're great for strengthening feelings of willpower and facilitating transformation and growth. So I hope that this is helpful for you in getting to know some fossils. I would love to see you incorporate some of these 5 fossils into your crystal healing practice. If you want to know more about working with your fossils, I am going to be teaching 2 classes at the upcoming Frozen in Stone Symposium. I'm going to be teaching fossils for elemental magic, where we will look at fossils and their connection to the 5 elements of earth, air, fire, water, and spirit, and how you can work with them for divination, for developing intuition, for creating more balance, all kinds of things. And I'll be teaching fossils for hearth magic and kitchen witchery, diving into the folklore and magic of fossils for really connecting with that heart of your home at the hearth, for nurturing, for community connection, for love and friendship and kindness. So if you want to join me for that, I have shared a link in the chat here. I would love to see you. It is live all day, pretty much all day, all afternoon, at least here in the United States, on Saturday, June 1st. There are 10 different classes in total, 5 presenters. I am teaching the 2 that I just shared, and there will also be Finding Fossils and Ammonites, Spirals and Sacred Springs with Anwen Avalon. There will be the Magic of Unicorn Bones and Fossils in German Folk Magic with Moss Matthey. My dear friend Nicholas Pearson will be teaching a class called Fossil Formation, the History and Science of Understanding Fossils, as well as Amber and Jet, Fossil Gems of the High Priestess. And finally, Brett Hollyhead will be teaching Magic That Bites, Fossilized Teeth in Folk Belief and Magic, along with Walking with Giants, an exploration of the mammoth's influence on myth and folklore. So it is sure to be an amazing day filled with fossil magic. You will receive recordings to all 10 of those classes if you sign up, in case you can't make it there live. But I hope to see you in class. It is going to be a ton of fun. And thanks so much for tuning in and learning about fossils with me today. I can't wait to see you there. I've also shared links to my podcast so that you can catch my top 5 fossils podcast episode when it drops in 2 days. So be sure to go subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Thanks for watching. Until next time, crystal blessings.